Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
The station was crowded. Many people with colorful suitcases in their hands and travel pillows around their necks stood patiently on the platforms, waiting for the train to arrive. Some crowded at the stalls, choosing a cake or a crossword puzzle for the evening. Some child begging his mother for ice cream. In all that bustle, very few paid attention to the young girl. In a panic, they rushed around the platform. For the umpteenth time, she ran up and down the platform, peering under every bench and behind every kiosk. Ethan shouted Maria in utter despair. "We have to go, Ethan. Come out, please." The girl slowly slid down the wall of the train station and covered her face with her hands. She stepped away for a minute to buy water, to leave her little brother alone, and then he was long gone. It seems that she has looked everywhere, wherever possible, and now could only make a terrible guess. Where could a 6-year-old boy disappear to on a busy platform? Yes, anything could have happened to him. Against her will, the girl's imagination conjured up horrible pictures of Ethan being grabbed and carried away by strange men. How he climbed under the train or went into someone else's carriage. And on top of all that, the boarding of their train was scheduled to begin within minutes, and Maria's eyes were already blurring. When she remotely heard the familiar voice of a child, Maria jumped up, began to look around, and suddenly, in a miracle, she saw a woman leading by the hand and an invisible smiling Ethan. The woman slowly stepped toward her and appeared to be explaining something to the boy, pointing her finger at Maria. She rushed toward them and held her brother tightly to her, kissing his blonde curly top. "Thank you very much. I had already imagined so much for myself." The girl turned to the stranger. Once she had recovered a little. "You see, he ran away, and I've been looking all over for him." "Yes, I understand." The woman interrupted her in a low, velvet voice. "Children of this age are quick-witted and curious. You have to keep an eye on them. Otherwise, they will do such a thing. And you, Ethan, don't run away from your mother again." She turned to the boy. "This is my brother." Maria gently corrected the stranger. She was not, however, accustomed to nagging at words. Only now the girl paid attention to the strange appearance. The woman had dark skin, a long brightly colored dress, a headscarf, and a whole assortment of jewelry around her wrists and fingers. A pure gypsy. "How did you know his name was Ethan?" Maria suddenly asked. "Ethan told me all about it." The stranger smiled with a sparkling gold tooth. "He is a very sociable boy." "Oh, really? It's usually hard to get him to talk to strangers too." "Where did you see him?" "Ethan ran up to me and looked at the rings for a long time," the woman explained. "He was just playing with them until I suspected he might be wanted. I hope he hasn't lost anything." Maria lit up and went through her purse. "Is there any way I can thank you for bringing him to me?" The gypsy waved her hand nonchalantly. "What are you, my dear? I have not done anything for you. Here you are." Maria handed the gypsy a $10 bill. Ignoring the woman's words without objection, she took the money thoughtfully, rolled it up, and shoved it into her dress pocket then, so that everything would be fair. "Let me give you out of the pen, everything, I'll tell you." "I'm not confused about anything." Maria waved her head confusedly. "I'm sorry, but we'll be on our way. Our boarding will begin very soon. And I don't really believe in fortune-telling." The girl turned to Ethan and tried to catch him in her arms, but someone squeezed her wrist tightly. The gypsy woman was looking through cloudy, dark green eyes and seemed to be looking right into her soul. She mumbled something quietly, fumbled Maria's palm and went over, and with her free hand amber beads around her neck. For a moment, Maria even felt uncomfortable. "You love your brother Ethan very much, but I see there is another Ethan in your life. Your chosen one." The gypsy's tone built softly and ingratiatingly, slowly enveloping the mind. "Are you both preparing for something important and worrying about it? Am I saying that right? Did Ethan tell you that too?" Maria said cautiously, squinted at her little brother. "I see your husband's identity has been rather blurred so far. He looks like a good, decent man." The woman continued nonchalantly. "But there is something wrong. There is too much darkness gathering around him. There's a mystery about him, and he doesn't want anyone to know. I don't think it's a good thing. I can see that. There's a little bit of a rift between the two of you at the moment. But if you don't do something about it, it's going to grow into an abyss. A lot of tears will be shed. The gypsy woman is shaking the beads in her hands faster and faster, so that they would probably soon be torn at all if Maria, at last, did not come to her senses and did not free her handwards. The women did not frighten the girl at all. On the contrary, they rather made her laugh. Maria was once more convinced that fortune-telling was an utter deception, sometimes with occasional hits. She knew her husband too well, a loving, honest, and hard-working man, to believe a single word from this mysterious stranger. Her Ethan was the most wonderful man on earth, and no one in the world Maria loved as much as she loved him. There was no rift, much less a chasm between them, and there could never have been. Ethan was always there, as he was now, as the two of them were actively engaged in the preparations for the bright and memorable event. Their first wedding anniversary. Exactly 1 year ago, Maria said yes in the registry office, and to this day, she believed that building a family with Ethan was the best decision of her life. There was always happiness, understanding, and comfort in their home. The loudspeaker was already announcing the arrival of the train on the platform. "You are being very clever, Auntie," the girl said quickly. "We really must run. The train is here. Thank you for your help. Goodbye." But the gypsy woman still had no intention of backing down. "Doesn't make a mistake, Maria," she exclaimed. "My divination has helped me to see. Many people of my sleepless night will tell the truth about you, and your destiny will tell the most important things." She reminded Maria and Ethan, who were walking away at a brisk pace, and put a piece of paper in her hand. "There is no need to tempt fate," Gypsy said. "Contact me. As soon as you come, I can tell you more and help you if possible. Just don't forget, Maria." Maria only absent-mindedly nodded, throwing the scrap into her bag, and began to look with her eyes for the right carriage. She did not listen at all to what the gypsy was saying. Right now, her thoughts were occupied with something else entirely. Ob settled down in the compartment and fed the figure. Maria took out her smartphone and texted her husband. "We're off. Meet me tomorrow at the train station at 7:40 p.m. Following the message immediately flew 3 smiley hearts. The answer from Ethan came almost immediately. "Agreed. By the way, how was the casting?" he asked. "Great. The director said I have every chance to get the role." Quickly typed Maria. "And I'm sure you'll get it. At last you're coming. I've missed you terribly. I hope you get good roommates in the compartment." She clutched the phone to her chest and sighed happily, catching herself smiling, an idiotic look on her face. What an Ethan. Caring, sweet, perfect. How could the gypsy have said anything about him? "Are you texting Ethan?" Ethan Jr. asked. "Yes, with Ethan." Maria nodded. The younger brother always knew her when she corresponded with her husband, probably by the goofy smile that appeared on her face every time. "Ethan is coming to meet us when we get there," La cheered the boy and clapped his hands. "Ethan, do I have a surprise for you?" Suddenly the girl said, "You'll have a kinder. Specially for you, bought with the Blue Patrol." She handed her brother a chocolate egg and watched in amusement as he carefully removes the wrapper. "I wish there was a racing driver," Ethan wished aloud. "I thought about the egg in 2 parts and held out one of them to Maria." Maria had a calm, joyful heart beating rapidly in her chest in anticipation of something big and momentous. She was returning to Phoenix, to the city where she had been born and raised. She had graduated high school, made true friends, met love. Almost her entire life was tied to the city. Maria traveled a lot, and she loved it. But she knew that after all that fuss, she could always return home, where everything is native, where they wait, where they love, where they are always happy. The girl also studied at the University of Arizona as an architect, and by now she had already completed 3 courses. She successfully developed in other areas as well. She often worked part-time for her parents, who had their own travel business. Maria always strived for perfection, and by her 21st year, she had achieved almost everything. She had perfect friends, a perfect husband, perfect composure, looks, and even posture. Her only plan was to get a prestigious job after graduation. But even with that, things were going very well. Maria had a dream of becoming an actress since childhood. But it was probably the only dream that never came true, turning into something foreign, distant, and unrealizable. Maria thought that she was not talented enough for that, so she did not even try to enroll in drama school after graduation. However, as it turned out, all was not yet lost, because the situation developed in a very unexpected way. Last year, she was noticed on social media by a photographer from a modeling agency who asked her to take some of her photos for a city magazine. Maria agreed. Then somehow this magazine ended up in the hands of the director of a big new project, and in Maria, he saw the main character of his movie. And then 2 months ago, she received a letter by mail from him urging her to come to the casting in Seattle. Maria was taken aback by such an offer. She was still not sure of herself as an actress, but she decided if fate gives her such a chance, she should take it. The audition took place only now in June. Maria told her parents she was going to Seattle for a week to see a friend. She lied because she didn't want to upset anyone, which was why she'd been given Ethan along for the ride. We just had to go there with him. Ethan is the best speech therapist in Seattle, and we had to see him. My mother got excited. As soon as the daughter informed him of her intention, the child is 7 years old, and he still can't pronounce the letter R. Mom was very worried about this. She had already taken Ethan to all the speech therapists in Phoenix, but none of them could get her son's tongue. Maria didn't see anything wrong with that. She thought that the time would come, and her brother would be able to pronounce the unfortunate letter on his own. But I got a small one. I've had enough of drinking them already, and Ethan scrambled to get the toy out of my hand. Of course, in a foreign city, a 6-year-old child had no one to put him with, so I had to carry him everywhere with me. However, at the audition itself, Ethan won the hearts of many actors and the admissions committee. Maria did not even think that if she really get the role, it will be on the bluff just because she has such a cute little brother. But still, in all seriousness, she was really worried. Here it was, her childhood dream could either come true or finally come true. But now everything that could depend on her, the girl had already done. Now all that was left was to wait for the verdict. So she gave up the idea of casting, and sweet dreams of filming Maria switched to another no less, and maybe even more important subject of the anniversary of the wedding with Ethan. It was exactly 2 weeks away, and preparations were in full swing. Maria and Ethan were going to have an unforgettable celebration, and since the spring they had been sitting down in the evenings and planning how they would celebrate this important date. They both wanted to recreate something special, something that symbolized their family, their wedding. They responded on the same principle. So after a raucous feast in a restaurant with friends and relatives, the two of them hiked far into the mountains and spent the night in a beautiful mountain cottage. This time the couple also planned to get out into nature, to take food and desserts with them, and to call a photographer of their closest relatives and friends. And yet Maria seemed to be still missing some kind of zest, and she tried hard to find it. The sun was already rolling in from the horizon. Bright, evening rays illuminated the compartment. To our joy, no one had ever joined them. So he and Ethan quietly rode together. The boy played with his tablet for a while and quickly fell asleep. Then out of the arc of a busy day, Maria leaned her head against the wall and watched the scenery, floating by outside the window. The girl didn't notice how she eventually fell asleep too. A hoarse extended horn sounded. The train slowed down and soon stopped at a large, beautiful platform. Maria woke and fed Ethan beforehand. She put him in a children's backpack, collected all his toys, and counted the rest of his belongings. By the time they arrived, she and her brother were ready in the vestibule. The conductor, terribly thin and frail, easily pulled open the heavy door and removed the apron. And after divesting herself of the suitcase, Maria set it out on the pavement. Ethan jumped down the top step on his own. Goodbye, he waved to the conductor and headed confidently toward the entrance to the building. Ethan, wait. Thanking the woman, Maria ran after her brother, at the same time looking around for her husband. The train only stopped for 5 minutes. All the people getting off here quickly left their carriages and the conductors put out. Yellow flags rolled up, waiting for the train to move. Soon the wagons were moving faster and faster as their numbers flashed. Surprisingly, not many people got off at Phoenix, and there were far fewer people on the platform than there had been in Seattle yesterday. Nowhere among them, however, could Maria discern a familiar face. She had already caught her brother and was leading him by the hand, holding her bag on her shoulder and rolling her suitcase behind her. So she had to walk to the nearest bench to get her phone and make the call. Ethan didn't pick up the phone. She dialed him a few more times, but the situation didn't change. And after a lot of ringing, a nasty one was heard. The caller's phone isn't answering. Leave a message after the tone. Maybe Ethan got the time wrong. It's unlikely they discussed everything yesterday, just overslept. He's stuck in traffic. But then why isn't he answering? Could something have happened? Maria didn't want to show her confusion to her brother, so without thinking twice, she decided to call a cab. Suddenly, someone put their hands over her eyes. Guess who? Whispered in Ethan's ear. Relieved, Maria exhaled, feeling the familiar native scent of men's perfume. She turned around and put her arms around her husband's neck. He laughed, and picking up her easily, he spun her around on the spot. Nearby joyfully jumped up and down Junior. Why did not you pick up the phone? Offended? Asked Maria as soon as she was lowered to the ground. I left my phone. You must have called while I was running to you, Ethan. What's the matter with leaving the phone? I thought something had happened to you. Is it so hard to take it with you? I had my hands full this time, and my other jeans had pockets sewn into them. The man parried, still smiling. Maria squinted. And what else haven't you noticed? Come back. On the bench lay a giant bouquet of red roses, made up in the middle of the card. The future movie star answered his admirer. Ethan Jr. spelled it out. Maria absolutely did not expect this. Slowly shifted her gaze satisfied husband on the bouquet, neatly tied with a blue ribbon. After a couple of seconds, she took the flowers in her hands and kissed her husband fervently. How many of them are there, dumbfounded? Whispered the girl, looking at the bouquet. 101 roses. I will love you exactly until the last of these roses withers, proclaimed Ethan. He seemed to be expecting an answer. But apparently instead, the task on his wife's face continued. There are 100 alive, one artificial one. Maria once again felt the happiest in the world. She walked proudly toward the car, barely peeking out from behind the bouquet, while passing ladies were looking at her enviously. Ethan was a romantic, and sometimes she thought that their relationship was still like a ninth-grade teenage relationship. She liked it, though, because it never seemed to cool their feelings for each other. Nevertheless, though Ethan was a simple and kind character, at the right moment he became very serious and responsible. So he could always be relied upon. And for me, the bail was demandingly asked by my brother when everyone got into the car. Do you want flowers too? Ethan asked incredulously, seating the boy in the back seat. The boy shrugged his shoulders thoughtfully. But to be honest, I haven't made up my mind yet. I'd rather buy you a puppy tomorrow than go on patrol. Ethan's eyes lit up more than the patrol. Come on, the boy nodded. Just pick some cold egg. So it's a chaser, not a Mal. I've got 4 now, but I can't vouch for the racer. The man put his hands up. At this rate, his teeth will deteriorate. Maria said sternly, sitting in the front, as Ethan plopped down in the driver's seat. Oh, it's only milk. Let the child enjoy his childhood. He responded nonchalantly. So, what's the plan? First, we drop Ethan off at his parents' house. He glanced at the boy through the rearview mirror. We don't have a baby seat. So, comrade, if we see one, we bend it right away. I got it. I got it. Ethan said eagerly. Maria's parents lived in an ordinary apartment in the neighborhood. On the way, she immediately texted her mother and warned her that her guests would be arriving soon. It took a good half an hour to get home, and it wasn't boring, by the way. Ethan turned on the radio, and the interior of the car was filled with the sounds, not too profound, but fun songs. Little Ethan enthusiastically sang along, not really paying much attention to what the lyrics were about. And the lyrics talked, among other things, about a lover and cheating, and many other things that children his age did not need to know. He liked the light, cheerful melodies of the songs, but did not go into the words. Maria herself, too, rarely listened to the deep messages of the music. When Ethan arrived, he grabbed his backpack and was the first to run up to the entrance and ring the intercom. When everyone took the elevator up to the 6th floor, there was already standing at the door Helen in an apron with a towel on her shoulder from the apartment, pulling a delicate doughy aroma of something sweet. And Maria, not without pleasure, recognized the smell of my mother's buns. "Let's not hurry to run these faster," I urged my mother, driving the delegation inside. "I have buns under there, I guess. You develop here for now and come to the kitchen, and I'll go get it." Actually, we were going to stay long, just to get Ethan started. Confusedly, Ethan muttered to the elder. But Maria tugged him affectionately by the arm, leading him deeper into the apartment. From what? But the girl had never turned down her mother's pastries before. The kitchen was bright and comfortable. Soft morning light poured in through the see-through curtains. But without both of them alive, the children's pictures of Maria and Ethan hung above the table, and among them was a picture of her father fishing with a huge clod in his hands. "By the way, isn't Dad home?" Maria asked, looking at the picture. "I sent him to the store. He ate everything yesterday. Now there is nothing to cook for lunch." Mom replied, "Don't you worry, he'll be here soon." Helen was already rummaging in the oven, taking out a huge tray. Maria quickly flew over and helped her, then buttered all the buns and put them on a plate, leaving my mother to do nothing. "What did the speech therapist say?" The first thing Helen asked, untied the apron. "Said the situation is hopelessly naive," sighed Maria doomfully. "How straight hopelessly, all so bad." Panicked the woman. In all this fuss with money, Maria never took her brother to the doctor. She had no time for that. But still, she did not dare to admit it. "No, Mama, calm down. The doctor said that everything will come with time, and there is no need to make a big deal out of it. That's what he said. Where's the certificate? Why does he need to write a certificate if everything is fine?" The girl threw up her hands, but of course he spoke in slightly different words. "But all in all, I gave you the basic gist for plausibility," she added. "He sounded strange. You must have seen that speech therapist." Helen mumbled incredulously. "Yes, Mommy did." So Ethan went for nothing. What did you do there?" The woman continued her questioning. Maria stretched out a lot of things, getting ready to improvise. But luckily, her brother flew into the kitchen, who would have done it 100 times better. Ethan was always a fan of embellishing all stories, so Mom would hardly suspect where they really were. Luckily, his brother didn't let him down, and while everyone was having tea and scones, Ethan Sr. described the trip to his mother in great detail, trying to hide a smile. Watched from the sidelines how rapidly his mother-in-law's face changes, at once displays all her inner monologues. That's the way the trip turned out. In the end, it flew by, only I did not understand with which particular friend went to see Maria. From what I heard, there was a feeling that there were a few or even a lot of them. Mom, it was Kelly. Remember I told you? She went to Italy to study after high school. So now, on vacation, she decided to fly back to her hometown. Her parents live in Seattle now. Maria was not confused, remembering an old friend. Kelly. Apparently Helen was surprised by that answer. Of course I remember. Except that I think I saw her in a store the other day. I was so surprised, I thought, what is she doing in our area? Well, I guess she's close. I still did not come close. But the girl was very much like our Kelly. Maria and Ethan looked at each other perplexed. Was Kelly really here? They hadn't seen each other in almost 3 years, and the girl would have been very happy to see her. In their senior year of high school, Kelly and Maria had become very close, practically best friends. It was with her that Maria had the funniest high school memories of running away from class together, stealing food from the cafeteria, putting on Teacher's Day skits. Once they even quarreled and fought for the attention of the lead singer of the school band, who, by the way, was almost 2 years younger than both of them. Sometimes Maria remembered those moments with a warm smile on her face, and every time she caught herself thinking how great it would be to meet Kelly, chat, laugh, like in the good old days. Maria quietly reached under the table for her phone. She flipped through almost the very end of the list and finally found a contact for Spike. It was a nickname Kelly had earned after another escape from gym class, when she had fallen straight into a patch of grass, to get her head all tangled up in the thorns. Maria, then, looking at her friend, laughed. However, the next day she came in with a short haircut, almost all her hair, and looking like a little thorn herself. After thinking for a few more moments and looking at the girl's avatar, Maria typed, "Hi, Thorny. It's been a long time. Aren't you in the USA right now by any chance?" How long did Maria remember Kelly? She had always said that she was going to study abroad after school, so she spent hardly any time on subjects other than English and German. But the irony was that after getting her exam results and applying to universities, Kelly dumbfounded everyone by announcing that she would be flying to Italy to study with zero knowledge of the language. At that time, all her friends and acquaintances thought she was crazy. But by this time, Kelly was a true polyglot, and Maria openly admired her friend's achievements. Maria was distracted by the creaking of the door in the hallway and by someone's footsteps. Her father came in from the store. Mama and Papa jumped up from the table. Ethan ran in and rushed into the hallway. The massive, broad-shouldered Robert picked up his son easily in his arms and put him on his neck while he laughed. "What men?" he muttered in a clear, low voice at the sight of his daughter and son-in-law in the corridor. "I thought you were arriving in the evening. I could at least buy some beer. We've had it in the fridge for 2 months now." Helen shook her hands. "Do you want me to pour it right now? Why buy a new one? Helen, it's not your beer. It's just a name." Robert dismissed it dismissively. "It's Ethan's anniversary too. Soon I'll give them a proper beer." And now the mother, pouring what she has. Robert lowered his son to the floor and twirled his long mustache around his finger, hiding a sly smirk behind it. No, Ethan's driving. And I don't drink on principle." Maria protested. "And I do drink. I'll have a beer." Ethan shouted loudly. Robert immediately laughed and patted his son on the cheek. That's where the real man grows up. He had mischievous lights in his eyes, just like Maria's when she was particularly cheerful. People always said that Maria took after her mother in everything. She had exactly the same build, long blonde hair, and a neat nose. But Maria's eyes were definitely Papa's amber radiant, blonde. While her mother was explaining to her that alcohol was not allowed to small children, Robert poked his daughter's pike and shook his son-in-law's hand firmly, so that he almost dislocated his shoulder. Importantly, as he made his way into the kitchen, he deftly grasped a bun with 2 fingers and noisily inhaled its aroma. "But how are the rolls today?" He turned to an indistinct person. "Yes, as usual," his mother responded, pouring a glass over the milk. Robert shoved a whole bun into his mouth in one fell swoop, and almost without chewing. Swallowed it. "Oh, mother, not divine," he mumbled. I said the usual embarrassed mother. Maria always had a lot of fun watching her parents. They were considered very respectable people in society. Everyone knew them as owners of a successful tourist business. But at home, this mustachioed big man flying around in his cheeks buns and a fragile girl, like a bird flitting around him, did not look too much like business partners. "What are you, stomping in the aisle?" Robert asked menacingly, shifting his bushy eyebrows. "Come to the table." "We've already eaten," Ethan interjected gently. "Well then, you'll just have a chat with your father. I have to leave for work soon. I'll be there tonight." My parents had their own camping place in the country with a small travel goods store. In addition, they were engaged in organizing tours, making interesting routes, equipped places for safe camping, created off-road vehicles for hiking and campers, or drove them themselves actively, and summer vacations were always in demand in Phoenix. With the advent of the vacations, people woke up, got out of their cramped apartments, and bundled up. They went to town. Work was getting very busy, and rooms at the campground were booked a month in advance. So my parents spent all their time at work and on weekdays on the weekends. They even had to send Ethan to kindergarten for the summer shift. "Tell me soon, how will you celebrate the anniversary?" Robert asked, chewing hard on a bun. "And I'm asking many times, they have not decided yet. Have not decided." So while you decide already, and the anniversary will pass. If you have such problems with imagination, then you can put on me to organize the holiday. Robert, you first deal with your own affairs. Helen sternly pronounced Helen not to pester the boys. I'm sure they're in the middle of their training. The woman looked lovingly at her daughter and stroked her hair. If they need help, they will come to us. And you yourself have prepared a gift for them. She looked at her husband again, inquiringly. I've already said I'll give them beer, he laughed. Robert, apparently, found his phrase very funny. Maria and Ethan looked at each other silently. Just kidding, why are you so gloomy? Are you sitting? Robert was surprised. So how is it going? Yes, there are only organizational matters. Ethan smiled. In any case, there is still time, Maria added. We have exactly 14 days before the feast. We will let you know soon. Let's do it now, you can't believe it. It's been a year already. Can you imagine? My father turned to my mother and continued his tirade without waiting for an answer. It seems like just yesterday that Maria was being prepared. This white dress was dressed up, and it has been a year already. I saw her in her wedding dress. I still have the picture on my bedside table, and Maria wanted to delete it. Every morning my mother and I wake up every day and admire it. What kind of daughter have we raised? Maria's memory immediately flashed back to the photo her father had taken before her wedding, of her sitting on the bed among the scattered clothes and makeup. Still completely shot, not wearing makeup, but she's in her dress. Robert had been watching her and had discreetly photographed her through the doorway. Maria then asked her father to delete or at least reshoot the picture, but he fell in love with exactly that one. So then he even printed it out and framed it. Dad said that Maria in the picture was very beautiful and relaxed, but the girl herself thought the picture was funny and ridiculous. You, Ethan, look, don't hurt Maria, so that at the holidays she will be as happy blooming as she was last year. Father slowly drank milk from his mug, wiped his mustache with his hand, and suddenly he was completely moved. How quickly time flies. First Maria, then before you know it, Ethan will bring his bride. And then the grandchildren. Helen, pour me some more milk. Helen laughed nervously, so that even the milk spilled a little while she poured it. Here's a grandmother to write me down for sure not yet. We still have our own son to raise. Don't wait too long with the kids. But also do not hurry, softly spoke. She had her last daughter and son-in-law. You have time to live for yourself too. It is necessary to travel a career, to build experience, to gain. To be able to raise their children in the future. Yes, we never thought about children, while Maria timidly put it in, but no one heard her. Helen turned to her husband again. Will our Ethan be bringing his bride soon? Don't go overboard here either. He's got other things on his mind, thank God. Yeah, like getting the racer in the movie world too. Ethan Sr. grinned. Time flew by while they were talking. Maria loved such gatherings, when the whole family gathered around the big table by the stove buns and listening to Robert's tales. On any mundane topics, everyone came to their senses only when the father realized he was almost late for work. Then the couple got ready to go to their place after all. As soon as the door behind Maria and Ethan slammed shut, they both fled at once. Visiting your parents. It's not a good idea. My tongue is going to fall off and black buns are coming out of my stomach. Ethan exhaled. He patted his stomach and didn't say a word. Maria didn't feel any better. I think the dead man's dad is talking seriously, she muttered. And then added, I love my parents. I wouldn't trade them for anyone else. The couple decided to walk back down the stairs while they talked about their lives. They got into a bright red Nissan, where Maria was still waiting for her huge bouquet, and calmly drove home. However, as it turned out later, only Ethan was calm. The worm of doubt stirred in the girl's heart again. Look, we don't really have anything ready, she said thoughtfully. What's there to get ready for? Immediately realized what Ethan's wife meant. We'll take a boat out on the lake, have a picture session on the deck, go swimming, and then we'll all sit together in the gazebo on the shore in the evening. I checked the weather all month should be hot. I could see that Maria was thinking about something, but Ethan couldn't figure out what was wrong. and she herself was vaguely aware of exactly what was bothering her. It seemed a little different from what she was expecting. The whole time was even absurd. Taking so long to contemplate the holiday, going through so many ideas to end up settling on the gazebo. She wanted to add something unusual to the program, the cherry on the cake, so to speak. But alas, she had no suitable ideas. "Why are you confused about something?" Ethan asked affectionately. "Turn off the soft music playing in the background." Maria did not immediately react to her husband's words. Only after a few seconds she looked into his eyes and her face showed something vaguely resembling a smile. The girl did not think it necessary to hide her thoughts from Ethan, so she wanted to share them. But she decided that now, while he was driving, was not the best time to do so. So the conversation moved on to the evening. In the meantime, the girl only said, "No, Ethan, it's okay. And we told my parents that we were going to go to the country. I got the impression that Mom and Dad were still expecting us to have a noisy banquet." Ethan grinned kindly. "Maybe. But personally, I don't like that kind of thing." The girl was sitting in a coca chair, not suspended from the ceiling, but behind a glass balcony. The balcony was Maria's favorite place. Nothing gave her as much pleasure as climbing into the cocoon in the evening and watching from above through the panoramic windows as life swarmed down there and colorful people. There were a lot of little ants rushing around. He and Ethan lived in a 14th floor apartment on the 12th floor, with a view of almost their entire neighborhood. Maybe even jokingly called their balcony a spy hideout. After all, anyone could really be tracked from it. Besides, from the 12th floor, it was always great to admire the chic entrances and shut-ins. In a word, sheer pleasure. This time Maria decided to go into seclusion to chat with Kelly, who didn't answer until late afternoon. Her friend was very excited about Maria's message and said she was going to write to her herself and suggest a walk because she had really arrived. As it turned out, Kelly had already done all her planned business in USA and was completely free for the remaining half of the trip. What could not be said about Maria? Reasoned sensibly, however, she decided that she could spare a couple of days to go out. After all, not all the time to sit at home, especially when it's the height of summer. Needless to say, the girls immediately began planning a meeting. We go to the mall, go scooting along the boardwalk, buy some ice cream, have a sleepover. One by one, the messages from Prickle arrived. It seemed the last time she had received so many offers to have fun was when she was 16, when her main concern was to pass her 10th grade exams and have an unforgettable summer. Let's invite the whole group, just like in the good old days. That would be so much more fun. Each of us will share our life news. Suddenly, Kelly wrote. Maria had an epiphany. Exactly, that's genius. Even though Kelly was Maria's best friend, they also hung out with other girls from school and were even in a small group. There were only 5 of Maria and Kelly's closest friends, Anna, Vanessa, and Molly. Maria treasured her friendships with them and still considered them to be some of the best people in her high school life. Maria still had their mutual group that no one had corresponded with in a long time, and they usually used it only to congratulate each other on holidays. The last time it was active was 4 months ago on her Vanessa's birthday. Let's write to the girls. I just had time to answer Maria's barbs when a new notification popped up in the general group. It turned out to be a voice message from the whole, which, by the way, was almost 2 minutes long. In all that time, Maria had completely forgotten how much she loved to chat with her friend. And apparently nothing much had changed to this day. Turning on her voices, the girl even flinched. How long since she had heard her friend's voice live? It seemed to her as if it had changed, grown older and harder. Hey, you guys. Don't be scared, it's true. I'm Kelly. It's been a while since we crossed paths with each other, let alone get together. I understand that everyone has a new life and worries by now. I, for one, have been out in the middle of nowhere and haven't been in our area in a long time. I think you have already understood what I'm going to talk to you all. Agree? It would be nice to meet and just walk around together, as in our school days to go to the movies on the waterfront. We could even hang out in the courtyard of our own 39th. Of course, it's summer now, and some may be on vacation or just out of town. but then you always sign who can and who can't. And in general, how do you feel about this venture? With Maria, I have already signed up. Now we need to talk to the others. If no one can make it tomorrow, we can arrange a meeting any other day. I am in Phoenix until the end of June. Anyway, Maria and I are waiting to hear from everyone. Maria, smiling, listened to Kelly's message and gave it a like. Of course, all of this could have been said in half the time. But on the other hand, Kelly spoke very interestingly. And the girl would have loved to have listened to another such vote. All we had to do was wait. 15 minutes later, Anna spoke up. "Oh, that's someone I didn't expect to hear. Kelly, are you back?" she wrote. Maria immediately read the message in her thin and quiet voice. "I'm only here for a month. I had some business to take care of." "So you can do it," Kelly replied. "Girls, I would love to, but I have no one to leave my daughter with." Anna followed up her message with a sobbing, smiley face. Anna was the youngest, diminutive, fragile of the whole company, but the very first to become a mother. The entire 9th grade school had been cracking up about her relationship with her classmate William since 7th grade. How much did Maria know? She had always dated him. For some reason, they were attracted to each other, despite the fact that both were quite complicated opposite characters. Because of this, their relationship was not ideal. They often quarreled, and during these periods, the school was divided into two camps. Some comforted Anna and said what a jerk William. Not for him such a rose blossomed. Others ran after William and assured him that it was time to forget this fool. After all, he still has time to meet the fate of his life. In any case, the constant pairing of William plus Anna constantly converged, and at graduation, and even announced their engagement. After high school, little was known about Anna. She stopped being visible on social networks. She studied by correspondence. 6 months ago, everyone found out that she and William had a child. The young father worked hard to provide for the family while she was babysitting her daughter. Kelly cursed profusely in Italian in Maria's private messages. She realized that one of her friends would no longer be able to come to the meeting, though Anna had been tirelessly making out with her William, a friend and a person in general. She was a good poet, and Kelly was annoyed. However, she only wrote to the general group about how her daughter was named Evelyn. A reply came in a flash, followed by a picture of the baby in a high chair, smearing mush all over her face. She answered Maria, deciding to herself that she wasn't mentally ready for children yet. Then Molly showed up in the group, a very tall girl with a mop of dark red hair. "I am fine with the idea. I won't be able to come. I'm out of town." Dryly, she answered Kelly's voice. Molly has always been a bit verbose. Maria tried to ask her more questions about things, but Molly went offline and wrote nothing more. This loss, however, didn't upset her too much. Just before graduation, the girl had a big quarrel with the whole company over some trifle. Maria would no longer remember which one, but she remembered the scandal she had caused. Molly had unreasonably attacked her friends. Of course, they made up in the end. But Molly never apologized, and it left a bad taste in my mouth for a long time. The last hope was for Vanessa, but Maria was also waiting for her answer. But unfortunately, she was in no hurry at all. Several hours had already passed. It was noticeably dark outside, and only the distant horizon glowed crimson. Ethan slipped into the balcony and brought Maria some fruit. At the same time, he asked her when she was going to bed. In the end, she realized with sadness that she and Kelly would have to walk alone. She had to admit that their company was truly a thing of the past. All the girls had a new life, overwhelmed with their own affairs and worries, falling asleep. Maria pondered, poring over all her thoughts. She remembered her failed conversation with Ethan and was determined to have it tomorrow, or at the very least, the day after tomorrow if she and Kelly decided to stay the night. However, there was a feeling sitting inside that there was something else she was bound to remember, but had forgotten how she hadn't gotten it all in. She could never understand the reason for her strange anxiety, which was definitely not related to the preparations for the anniversary, but to something more important. She was still studying in bed for a long time. Even Ethan usually still fell asleep about 1 o'clock in the morning already sweetly. Sleepily put his arm around his wife's shoulder, That night, Maria dreamed of a gypsy girl, hazy with green eyes, who ran after the girl on a long platform whose end could not be seen, and shouted in a terrible voice, "Write me, Maria, before it is too late. Write to me, or you will shed a lot of tears." In the morning, Maria thoughtfully brushed her teeth, trying to remember the details of the dream of Ethan, who had to work early in the morning, was drinking tea in the kitchen, and almost choked with fear, when he heard a high-pitched, shrill scream from the bathroom. The man rushed to help Maria, imagining in his mind the most horrible pictures, but opened the door, found her jumping for joy with a mouthful of foam from a toothbrush in her hands. The girl quickly disappeared, said mouth, and flew out of the bathroom on wings of happiness. Vanessa responded and said yes for the day, and Anna made arrangements with her grandmother for her daughter. She chanted and drank Ethan's tea in 2 gulps. Ethan and I then ran. The girls agreed to come back late at 10. In a few seconds, the girl changed out of her pajamas and into her dress, grabbed her keys from the nightstand, and ran out into the entryway, leaving her in an empty apartment. Ethan managed only to scratch the back of his head and mutter something that sounded like a butt. The new day promised to be very busy. Kelly, having learned that Vanessa and Anna were coming to the meeting, perked up and wrote that she would be waiting for everyone on the square near the fountain. So now Maria ran across town to the appointed place. She was delighted at this sudden turn, and the strange dream slipped from her mind in a flash. Finally, the girl reached the square and approached a huge fountain of sunlight. Beside it, a lot of children were developing, who were bathing without unnecessary ceremony and splashing all their passing people. Maria waited in pleasant excitement and in anticipation of the imminent meeting. She already imagined how she would tell the girls about her imminent anniversary, about the casting and her new life. "Maria," a familiar ringing voice called out to the girl. Maria turned around, looking for Kelly's eyes, and found her friend stepping out of the cab quickly. She couldn't believe she saw her beloved friend in front of her. Kelly hadn't changed at all. It seemed like only yesterday she was looking at her exactly the same on the last call, bright, smiling, ridiculously shaggy hair, resembling a different barb. The barb swooped into Maria's arms as she pulled away and took another long look at the girl's face. "Squint. I can't tell what's changed. Wait. Did you stop wearing glasses?" It finally dawned on Kelly. Maria laughed in her sophomore year. "Now I wear lenses and you still haven't changed. It's a funny haircut. Not a funny one, but a very new one. It's called a mix. I kind of found myself after that fall. Before that, there was no way in the world they would have made me get a haircut. Kelly, am I glad to see you?" Once again I was touched. Maria repeated, "I'm going to tell you so many things." Only after me my friend laughed and did not waste any time driving Maria to us with ice cream. Kelly showed up bright pink in a tracksuit, sunglasses, and white sneakers, clutching a lightweight sports handbag in her hand. The image was completed by red glossy lipstick on her lips in the color of her manicure. In general, her style had not changed, but Maria for some reason thought that this is how any modern young wife of some oilman looks nowadays. But what who knows about Kelly's private life was little known. But today Maria was going to ask her specifically about everything. And by the look of Kelly herself, it was obvious that she would burst if she didn't share. Unfortunately, no one had thought to discuss the dress code beforehand. And now they were already pretty tired. Maria was in a hurry to get a sporty slash in her shoes and an airy red dress. The girls immediately bought 4 ice cream cones for all their friends and decided to wait in the shade outside the toy store. Suddenly, the doors swung open and a lady with several bags jumped out. Anna dumbfounded, Kelly exhaled. But Maria pulled her back gruffly. "What are you doing?" It's not her. But the girl turned around and her face lit up with a soft smile. "Oh, girls, did you see me come in here? I thought we were meeting at the fountain." To say Maria was shocked is nothing to say. She only recognized Anna by her angelic voice. That's who really turned into a different person. Anna, visibly recovered. But it didn't look untidy. Rather, on the contrary. She was no longer so abnormally thin. Her body seemed to have become healthier and stronger. On top of that, having always been brown, she had dyed her hair blonde, and it was much longer. She was dressed nicely, but just sported pants and a t-shirt. Seeing her like that was terribly off-putting. After all, in your memories, she was still that coquette, running next to William in heels, defiant miniskirts. But in any case, Maria really liked the new look. All the changes certainly suited her. And here I have bought a couple of boutiques for Emily. He shrugged his shoulders in embarrassment as he stepped closer. I'll just run down to Majin's and drop everything off. You just do not go anywhere. Without waiting for an answer, Lena turned and galloped across the road, leaving Maria and Kelly staring thoughtfully after her. She was so. Kelly sighed. She looked at Maria in bewilderment. Look, Maria, that really was our Anna. Well, a voice like hers answered the girl. That's what motherhood does to people. In a murderous tone said the prickle in Maria's pocket phone. The caller was Vanessa, who appeared to have been sitting by the fountain in company for 20 minutes. She didn't look like she stood out much. She was always quiet and friendly. And in class, she was considered quiet at all. They often experimented with hobbies, but after school, she stopped at knitting. So Maria was not too surprised to see her at a cute, knitted set of skirt and vest when the whole company was in attendance. Immediately after the Rapturous, they all went to the movie theater in a noisy group. Everyone was enjoying the ice cream, each talking about something, and Maria, forgetting to listen with interest to the stories of her friends. Unfortunately, Kelly never turned out to be an oilman's wife. On the contrary, she was the only one, according to the girl herself, who was happily single. In spite of this, in her rich narrative, now and then there were glimpses of some incredible cyclists cooking under her window in the expressive waiters of the nearby cafe, and even a charming lecturer. Mostly, though, Kelly chattered about delicious Italian food, the cozy streets of Rome, and her new friends. Anna listened to Kelly with a twinkle in her eye and with bated breath. When it came to her, she was embarrassed. From the story, it seemed that her world now revolved around her daughter. Even the name of the once adored Vlad not once sounded. She spoke in awe of how Evelyn sleeps, eats, how she got her first tooth, and then the second what a beautiful little tale she paid Veronica recently. We could go on and on for the rest of the evening. The situation was saved by Vanessa, who gently turned the attention to herself with her story. Maria was as surprised as she was. Vanessa did not leave her hometown, but stayed to study in Phoenix. But for some reason, the girls hardly ever crossed paths with her on the streets, not in the stores. In general, Vanessa lived an ordinary life, studied, went to the gym, dated a good guy, but the big revelation was Maria. The fact that the girl already had her own fairly successful brand of knitted clothes. Vanessa gave her friends a link to her store's Instagram, which had almost 70,000 followers and lots of rave reviews under the posts. The model who was photographed wearing the items was Vanessa herself. Her slender figure looked perfect on any piece. How beautifully styled her brown hair served as a complement to all the images from the store. Vanessa already had a steady income. That's how seemingly inconspicuous and quiet she achieved it all on her own. By the 21st year, Maria had not had time to listen. The movie started. We went to see something from Marvel. No one but Kelly knew anything about the universe, so she was the only one stuck to the screen, occasionally explaining something to her friends. The rest of us listened for a while, and even during the session kept whispering. Everyone came out of the cinema happy, especially Bright, who was overwhelmed with emotion from watching. To think that it is more interesting to listen in the original. In contrast to the Italian voiceover, I'm already accustomed to watching movies in the original, ranted Kelly. It was past 12:00 p.m., and by mutual agreement, it was decided to go for a bite to eat. Vanessa insisted on going to her favorite kebab stand, which was almost 2 kilometers from the movie theater. Kelly resented it for a bit, but eventually gave in. After all, according to Vanessa, there was such a kebab there. On the other hand, why complain? At least she was wearing sneakers. It was easy for her to run. As they walked toward her, they chatted about everything. But at some point, all eyes turned to Maria. "Honey, didn't we listen to you?" Kelly exclaimed. "Maria, what news about you?" Anna inquired curiously, sparkling her eyes. From surprise, she was at a loss, not knowing where to begin. "Girls, I got married last year," she said simply. "Really? And I'm finding out about it just now." You could have written at least "I'm always open." Ready to share the joy. The prickly girl was indignant. "You're not too eager to write me about your Italians, either." Could not resist the Barb's girl. But let us all pay attention. Vanessa smiled. "Who is he?" Kelly added. Maria sighed dreamily, imagining the image of her beloved in her head. "His name is Ethan, and we met at camp the summer after school," she said. "I thought you could only go to camp until you were 18. Kelly interrupted again, earning a condescending look from Maria. "Kelly, listen to me. In the summer, my parents got me a job as a junior camp counselor. To be honest, I didn't really want to go there at all. I didn't think I'd meet my love there. Anyway, Ethan was also a counselor. He was 4 years older than me, so he watched 6th, 7th graders. We crossed paths with him a lot at recess lunches and talked a lot. All in all, I began to consider him a pretty good friend. One day he invited me to do a poster. I remember that day very well, because it was probably the turning point in my life. We were sitting on the veranda of an empty building that was being renovated. Then he admitted that he liked me from the beginning, first externally, and then when we got to know each other better, and internally, he said that if his sympathy is mutual, we can start dating. I didn't know then what to answer or how to react to that, because at the time I had heard all sorts of things from the parallel. Yeah, and you were proving to everyone at the time that you didn't care about him. That's when Kelly's friend teased me. Come on, it was obvious to everyone that you didn't. Maria chuckled. I actually thought James was right for you. He was very smart and seemed to eventually get his attention. Vanessa sighed. Oh, James was a nerd. Poked a prickle. Still don't understand what Maria saw in him. Maria frowned. Not true. James wasn't bad, but he wasn't Ethan, so we won't discuss him anymore. Let Maria go on with her story. A quiet plea was heard. Anna. And Maria continued. Ethan started sending me cute surprises, notes, bouquets of wild flowers. For the rest of the shift, I thought about his proposal, and at one point I realized that he was much better than James. Before I knew it, I was head over heels in love too. I decided to stay at camp for the rest of the summer so he would be there for me. We did all the activities together, helped each other out, and ran to the pond at night to make out. Maria felt her cheeks flush from those tumultuous. But such dear memories when the summer was over. He kept coming to my house, despite the fact that he lived almost across town. Last May, when Ethan was on vacation, we decided to go camp counseling again at the camp where we had once met, and by the same pond. He proposed to me. Maria spoke so heartfeltly that the friends didn't notice that they had been standing in the middle of the road listening to Maria and Ethan's love story for several minutes. When was the girl finished? There was a strange silence. How romantic. At last, Anna said, in a helpless tone, Yes, it's our anniversary. By the way, soon in 2 weeks. Come on, opened her eyes Kelly. Oh, you, Maria. You know, girls, I'm so happy to see you all again. I thought a day with you wouldn't be enough, so maybe you can come to the party. I'll talk to Ethan, but I don't think he'll mind. It would be great to introduce you to him. Kelly, you're not leaving on the 29th. The 29th. No, I'm not leaving till the 30th. Wait, are you inviting us? Vanessa asked incredulously. Yes, I am. You're not strangers to me. And Ethan is always for making new acquaintances, Maria answered. Okay, I'll be there. Kelly jumped up. What can I get you? What do you want? You can just come. I won't be offended. Warmly, Maria smiled. I will certainly come too. You just write about it. What if your Ethan will still be against it? And I want to know what time and where to go. Vanessa responded. One Anna hesitated indefinitely. I'll try. She sighed at last. Time passes quickly while I sit on a bench and eat a big kebab with a lot of laughter and conversation. The friends chatted for a long time about something. But Maria didn't. Remember why she was looking at her family's faces. She was overwhelmed by simple happiness and divorce. Laughing, holding a kebab in her outstretched hand. from which the sauce dripped copiously. Through laughter, she said, "Vanessa, if this kebab I do not grow a diamond tooth." "Eat, eat," Kelly admonished Vanessa. "You'll get all the sauce and it won't taste good." Suddenly, she pigeonholed Kelly's hand. Maria loved long summer walks more than anything else in the world, and that day was all about it. The girls rode on electric scooters, their authentic on the promenade, were beating balls in a children's shooting gallery ran along the edge of the fountain. About almost all clothes, even restless. Anna, constantly thinking about her Evelyn, eventually relaxed, loosened up, and began to get off more than anyone else. After making her way around the mall, she hopped on a gurney in the store and Kelly launched her all over the parking lot. In the park, they took long pictures of Kelly's wearing dark glasses and uploaded some new posts to Instagram. In short, each of the girls got a full taste of carefree teenage life. That day, when it started to feel like it, they decided to head back to the plaza. On the way, Kelly shared funny stories with the Italians about Anne Maria and the recent casting of Maria. "But you're lucky after all. I read Vanessa. I've known that since high school. Remember when you did those history tests? You did it by rote all the time, and you still got straight A's. And now, you might say, by sheer coincidence, I was called to make a movie." Did you even ask Kelly what the movie was about? There was something about equestrianism that Maria was vaguely referring to. That's quite an application. Are you going to be an equestrian? It's a whistle and a bard. No, but is training included in the contract? The girl answered, "Actually, I do not mind to learn to ride a horse. And for my part, no super difficult tricks are not required." I'm shocked. Vanessa just continued to marvel aloud. Do you know how much equestrian lessons cost nowadays? And you, Maria, can all that just happen to you? You're just lucky. Usually people say that sarcastically, but I'm dead serious. It's not certain that I'll get the part. Maria chuckled nervously. With your lucky will, Vanessa had assured her. That was why Maria was afraid to share her beginnings with anyone. Everyone had high hopes for her, and Maria was afraid of not meeting them. Vanessa, meanwhile, had completely broken up. And your boyfriend sounds like a great guy. He didn't take his time and almost immediately proposed to me. Here's my David and I. We've been dating for 5 years now, and it's not like we're fighting. But I still haven't gotten a proposal from him. It's like we're standing still. Maybe I should bring him to your party too. He'll think about it. Maria somehow got confused and hurried to change the subject. Girls, it's late. I do not want to go away. So I suggest we rent a hotel room and have an overnight stay. I didn't have to convince anyone. Everyone was all for it. Even Anna decided that sometimes you have to let yourself relax and asked Grandma to keep an eye on her daughter for another day. Maria also wanted to warn Ethan about her decision, but as if reading her mind, her husband called her himself. "Hey, Maria, you're home already." Did his voice come out of the phone? "No, aren't you back yet too?" The girl wondered. "No, not yet. I got held up at work today. I haven't got time for anything. I'll probably be home. It's very late." What a nightmare. I shook my head. "Maria, but good luck. Then don't write. Work hard. I'll stay with the girls tonight. You don't mind? We'll get a room at the hotel." "All right." Ethan agreed easily. "Thanks for the heads up. Have fun then. Kisses. Love you too." Ethan hung up the phone. He worked as a realtor, doing sales, an apartment in a new building. Maria didn't know much about the profession, but she thought it was very responsible and heavy girls have a rubber band. "I can't get my hair back," shouted Vanessa from the bathroom. "I think I had some." Maria responded, "Look in the bag." Vanessa ran out in the white bathrobe issued by the hotel and went through Maria's bag. While she was sorting out the TV, there was a huge TV in the room which you could connect to and watch your favorite movies. But first, she had to figure out how to do it, which is what Maria was doing now. The sleepover was in full swing, and the other friends took turns doing all the evening routines. "Maria, how much junk do you have here before you turn on the movie?" Vanessa carefully took out her hairbrush, a few pens, lipstick, a mirror, tissues, and a charger for her phone. Finally, the rubber bands. "What's all this paper you've got here?" Vanessa pulled out a strange scrap of paper and unfolded it. Here is the number of some gypsy Joe Franca. She read fortune-telling Maria. Do you believe in fortune-telling? Do you do astrology? Maria turned around. Yes, I met some strange woman at the train station. She predicted me something else to write, she asked. Wow, and let's write for fun. Vanessa got excited. And with the movie still nothing comes out. She's only going to make you money. Grew up. Where did you come from, Kelly? We're not stupid enough to send her money. Just a chat. What if she's just guessing? Vanessa shrugged. Maria suddenly remembered today's dream and cold shivers ran down her spine. After all, that gypsy had really guessed her husband's name exactly, and that they were preparing for a significant event. Is there such a thing as a coincidence? Mariah, what shall we write to your Joe Franca? Vanessa snapped her out of her stupor. Well, let's write it. Shall we write for Maria, or shall we tell a story of our own? Vanessa asked. No, let's do it for me. After all, she asked me to do it. Maria took out her phone and typed in the gypsy's number. Hello, Joe Franca. This is Maria. I met you at the station yesterday. I'm writing about your divination. I would like to know more. What did you mean? The girl typed quickly. You think it's all right? Maria frowned doubtfully, showing the text to his girlfriends. And what she foretold you that? Instead of an answer, Kelly asked. Vanessa was also peering curiously over her shoulder. Garbage, really, Maria sighed, and sent a message. A couple of minutes later, a reply from the gypsy girl came. Hello, Maria. I remember you and your problem, the woman wrote. I confess that I was very worried that you would not take my warning properly and not write. Maria raised his eyebrows. Had that Joe Franca known that Maria's desire to write to her was no more than a coincidence? I am willing to help you on one condition. The woman continued to write. Now she's begging for money. Kelly rolled her eyes. My divination will only work when you are alone with your soul, not under someone else's pressure, but alone. Only then will I be able to see the truth. But I'm glad you wrote almost at midnight. It's a time when you feel especially connected to the universe. I just want to see if you're alone. If you are, can we get started on what's straining Maria? No, Kelly, look. She didn't ask for money, Vanessa giggled. So there's still more to come. Snickered this. Maria, are you really going to step aside to be alone with your soul? No, of course not, Maria answered. I'm afraid of her. You know, I wouldn't risk it. I'm not sure if it came from behind. What if she gets excited, and it doesn't go according to plan, and she'll curse us all? Yeah, and so just Maria laughed at Kelly. Are you seriously believing this nonsense? But I had a bad experience. Shyly continued Anna. These gypsies always made me afraid. Mash, you're better really, and I'm not angry. What if this is a test? Communicate in the bathroom where there is no one. And better not at all. The girl sighed heavily, but after a few more slept, decided to follow the advice of seclusion. Who knew what this Joe Franca was like? Maria herself had already regretted agreeing to write to her, but the correspondence had already begun, and just to merge from the conversation conscience did not allow. Maria locked herself in the knot and sat down on the edge of the bathtub. You did not answer me, Maria. Are you alone now? Yes, the girl wrote. So what do I have to do? That's fine. Now I'll tell you everything. It's almost midnight and everything should go smoothly. Are you ready to start the reading? I'm ready. Maria always had fun with this kind of game, but now it was suddenly very creepy. As I read Joe Franca's message, her low voice immediately sounded in my head, and the image from the dream rose before my eyes. I couldn't see your husband clearly last time, because a dark fog had started up next to him. But I need to see his face before we can proceed. Send me a picture of him. After long and several minutes of deliberation, the girl did send a picture of her lover. The gypsy girl was silent for a while, which made Maria all the more worried. But it turned out that Joe Franca had been writing a huge text the whole time. Thank you, Maria. The picture fits. I had to print it out and do some machinations to figure out what your husband is hiding. Fortunately, the energy is off the charts at this hour, and it didn't take as long as at any other time of the day. I could clearly see how all your impulses to help him break down the wall that had grown between you. Maria didn't want to read any further. This gypsy woman has a chasm, and then a wall of sorts, it seems. She can't make up her own mind. This is not the first time I have encountered something like this. Even a novice in this business would have no trouble figuring out what is going on in your relationship. Someone is forcibly pulling Ethan out of your family and doing it in an unholy way. Whether someone is bringing him in is yet to be seen. We need more information, but they did it by all the rules. A stronger spell on your husband wouldn't be so hard to get back, but Ethan himself seems to like it. It's a strange attraction to a new companion. I know it's not easy to accept, but fortune-telling always tells the truth. They're more powerful than any other means. But it may take a lot of strength, energy, and sessions to change things and bring Ethan back. Maria was suddenly struck with a wave of rage. How dare that imposter talk about Ethan? What kind of spell? What kind of nonsense was she talking? There was not the slightest hesitation. She added Joe Franca's number to a blacklist, cleared her correspondence, and turned off her phone. Then she sat alone frowning for a while longer until there was a knock on the door. Maria, what is it? What did she tell you? Have you been pounding on the door for so long, Kelly? I hope you didn't pay her. Those gypsies always do that first, and then give you money. Maria didn't tell her friends about what Joe Franca had written. She said she was scared, and on Anna's advice decided not to get involved in such a thing, and sat in the bathroom for a long time. For natural reasons. After an almost sleepless night with her friends, Maria was watering her nose all day and decided to talk to Ethan about the holiday. Only toward evening did she make coffee, settle down at the kitchen table, and wait for the man to come out of the shower. There was his phone on the table, and from nothing to do, Maria opened the camera on it and began to cringe. A few minutes later, Ethan appeared in the kitchen. When he noticed Maria, he took one step closer and snatched the smartphone out of her hands. "What are you, a balloon in my phone?" he asked tensely. "Why are you taking it without asking?" He looked at the screen, saw only an open camera, and was embarrassed. "Do you have something to hide?" Maria asked Maria with a frown. "I'm sorry, I'm all on edge. I've got nothing to hide from work now. I had some documents prepared there. I thought you closed them." "Okay, I get it. I didn't even block it. I was actually gonna talk to you about our anniversary." "Oh, I'm listening to you very carefully." Ethan got his relaxed look back. He made himself some coffee too, and sat down across from me, slowly stirring his spoon. "Anyway, Ethan, I'm a little confused about the plan for our party. We wanted to come up with our own personalized holiday plan, and that's where we left off. There are, and half the population expressed their doubts. We have enough time. We can have time to replay, or at least add to the program, something like this," smirked her husband. "I do not know. Honestly, I thought that we're cool as it is, without any scope. But it's going to be a great party. And what would you want, something a little bit different? Why would you want an unconventional boat? Not everybody's going to jump in the water on their anniversary." The man shrugged his shoulders. "Ethan, you talk like you don't care." "I do care, Maria. I just thought we talked about it. It's all arranged. The program's planned. It's great. I don't see the point in changing it. So you're against it? You want to keep it the way it is, even though you know your wife doesn't like it." Maria raised her voice unexpectedly, even to herself, "And I think you're just tired. It's been a long day. And now let's go, and I'm going to bed for you. Tomorrow, if it still bothers you, can we talk about it again?" Ethan gently put his arm around his wife's shoulders and led her to the bedroom. Maria did not resist. To be honest, she would have liked to curl up and doze off sweetly in Ethan's arms. But for some reason, she decided that it was crucial to have this conversation this very evening. Now she had already changed her mind. Besides, she couldn't understand why she had been so strange and rude to Ethan. Could it really be because she was overworked? Not before the rash. Before she went to bed, Maria said languidly, "I invited my friends to a party. You don't mind, do you?" "What friends?" "I do not understand, Ethan, with whom you went out." "Yes, I do not mind, I do not mind." "Get down. Hurry up," my husband answered. "Your eyes are falling asleep." I'll come in a moment too. Maria fell asleep instantly. The next day, she was able to get out of bed only at noon. Completely out of the born energy, Ethan by that time had long been at work. But even when he returned, the girl did not bring up yesterday's subject. She realized that Ethan was not eager to change anything, to start an argument. Not at all. After all, nothing would happen. If the anniversary passed without a twist, that was what Maria decided for herself. Of course, she was a little sad, but she certainly was not going to get depressed over such a trifle. The holiday was coming up, so she should be happy. She just asked her husband again about the girlfriends, because she'd simply forgotten that she'd asked him that before she fell asleep, but his answer didn't change. He didn't mind getting to know his wife's close high school friends. A few more days passed, in which there was nothing noteworthy, as Ethan was away at work all day. Maria decided to bring her brother over so he wouldn't get bored at daycare. Almost none of his friends stayed for the summer shift. Together, they walked in the park, danced in the kitchen, cooked meals, and made the apartment comfortable in every way. Maria generally noted that Ethan would be a great host in the future. He diligently dusted, watered all the flowers, and even picked up the fallen rose petals from Maria's bouquet in a vase. The holiday was a week away, and the girl was in a very bad mood. There were only a few things she was worried about. A gift for her husband, which was not going to arrive in time for the due date. Because of my husband, who was heavily burdened at work, Ethan came very late, was tired and not much of a talker. However, he explained that he was purposely working more hours and substituting for coworkers so he could take a few days off for the holiday. "Hello, Maria," Ethan called. "Somehow I'm coming over tonight too. It's late. Go to bed without me." Again, Maria said disappointedly, "Ethan, I think you've already worked for a whole vacation." "Yes, I know I have." Frustrated, the man muttered, "My own mind is already blowing. These apartments in the new building is a pain in the ass with one family for a week, cannot solve anything. But these are the last days. I promise I'll rest later." "Okay, but I'm worried." "What time will you be back home?" The girl asked. "I don't know, Maria, as it happens." "Late." Ethan hung up. Maria took a sullen breath and put the phone away. Her gaze flicked to the clock, which showed 9 p.m., which gave her an idea, and she remembered her present, which was already running late. She bought an expensive wristwatch with precious stones for Ethan. She'd noticed how he'd been looking at it for a long time, so she'd been saving up for that watch for almost 2 months. If they really don't make it in time, would she really have to show up at an anniversary without a present for her lover? Maria quickly grabbed her laptop from the nightstand to check on the website where the watch is now, and if there are ways to somehow speed up the delivery. On the screen was a chat room with Cindy. The laptop was tethered to her husband's phone. Ethan often communicated with clients through it. So Maria just rolled up the correspondence. She scoured the internet for a long time, looking for the information she needed, until a message notification popped up in the corner from that very Cindy. "All in all, I have everything ready to check out. What I need is what I ordered in general," she wrote. Attached to the message was a picture. Normally, Maria was never interested in what Ethan was chatting about with his customers. But this time, for some reason, she suddenly had the urge to click on the box and read it. Given this sudden impulse, she opened the correspondence. It began yesterday's day, and it was clear from the content that it was not complete. Apparently, Ethan had cleaned up the chat room before that. "Cindy, better look at other options. With shipping, we'll only have a couple of days until the 29th. And according to the instructions, you have to apply this poison for at least a week before it works, so we won't have time." "Ethan, yeah, that's not good enough. What are the alternatives?" "Cindy, I don't know. We'll have to see." "I thought you were free already. I'm just busy at the moment. It's not convenient to talk. You'd better go on the internet." "Ethan, yeah, I'll give it a try. Then I won't be distracted as a freebie." "Right, and I'll pick you up by car." Maria clapped his eyes in amazement. The messages were sent at 6 o'clock last night. So why had Ethan confirmed that he was already available? Maria, he then called, as usual, and said he would stay late at work. And anyway, what are we talking about here? The girl shook her head and then kept on writing. Ethan, I think, found the right fit. The store is not as big, but you have to wait less for delivery. They say it kills almost instantly. I've seen it myself, and the concentration is just right. I'll send you a picture. By the way, are you free yet? Cindy, yeah, I'm on my way out. Ethan, Cindy, you or me? I never answered. Ordering. Cindy, wait. I haven't looked at it yet. I'm already getting dizzy with all these squads. Why is your wife in so much trouble? Ethan, there won't be any trouble soon. There's only a week left. Maria clutched at her laptop and tried to read on. But the letters tumbled in front of her eyes. She was only covering scraps of further correspondence. She couldn't wait to get it over with. The wife has no idea that a new life is coming. The correspondence ended with the very message from Cindy with a picture attached. The photo showed a black jar with a skull, and the caption below was your order complete. Get it at the pickup point. June 26 to 27. Suddenly, Ethan's reply popped up, apparently sent just now from his phone. That's right. Well done, Cindy. Maria slammed the notebook shut and stared at the wall. Her heart pounded loudly in her chest. No, this could not be. Such a thing is simply impossible. It was running through her head. Maria had tears streaming down her cheeks uncontrollably. She opened and closed the laptop several times, as if she could not believe her eyes. But the ill-fated correspondence had not disappeared, was not a figment of her sick imagination. Only the words and messages were more and more burned into her memory and inflamed her soul. Maria didn't remember falling asleep. She did not remember how she looked at Ethan the next morning with empty eyes. So dear and precious. She did not remember how he had told her again, before he left, that he would be back late. She didn't remember kissing the top of her head goodbye. She stood on the balcony for a long time, looking down as her husband got into the car and drove away. For some reason, she remembered the songs on the radio when she and her husband drove together. Ethan had so much fun singing along to them, often talking about mistresses and cheating. Could the girl ever have imagined that the lyrics of those songs would be prophetic? Maria felt nothing, no pain, no sadness, no rage, only a total emptiness. It was as if all her energy had been drained out of her in an instant. It took a long time to realize it. More precisely, Maria herself kept him away. His girlfriend didn't want to believe it. She simply could not allow the idea that her husband was capable of betraying, hiding, cheating. More than once in her life, she had been disappointed in people, lost friends, endured betrayal. But all these things had happened to ordinary people who came and went, who you could just let go and meet someone new. And it was Ethan, her husband, the most beloved, the closest relative. She could never imagine being with anyone other than Ethan, and she could never imagine Ethan with anyone other than herself, much less with Cindy. She tried to imagine her rival, but she couldn't. She could only think of banal internet hotties with their pouty lips and makeup that made them look like clones of each other. Maria could hardly believe that her husband had a crush on someone like that. Ethan, on the other hand, had always ridiculed this fashion of looking like each other. Then who did he like? Who? Maria lay there almost all day. In his room, staring at the ceiling and trying to convince himself that what he had seen last night was just a dream, a silly nightmare. Every time the girl clutched her eyes shut, that creepy correspondence came back to her. Maria had already learned it almost by heart, but for some reason, it was as if she still needed confirmation. She opened her laptop and found the very same chat room, which was empty. Ethan cleared it again. Maybe nothing really existed after all. Maybe that meant Maria was so worried about the holiday, about Ethan, about being late, and about the gift, that she had just lost her mind. Lying on the bed, the girl thought that she would have enjoyed this arrangement far more than finding out about her husband's cheating. Not even just cheating. They were going to poison her, kill her on her anniversary. Look at that, and calculated everything to be in time for the holiday and picked the right poison. Maria even grinned. No, her Ethan is still the smartest. I wonder how she and Cindy are going to get out of this in front of Mom and Dad. Because if Maria got it right, it would have to be on the day of the party. They're not going to slip her a poisoned drink right in front of the guests, are they? Or had the couple planned their murder for the morning, or even the day before? Maria suddenly remembered the gypsy. It turns out she was right. Was it magic? Spirits? Was there really a connection to the universe? Had Cindy seduced Ethan? But at that moment, Maria felt too shattered to know what was going on. Still, what she had seen explained why Ethan was so indifferent to her request to diversify the anniversary program. Why bother when now the date of June 29 would be celebrated not as the day the family was founded, but as the day Maria died? Maria wiped away a burning tear that ran down her cheek. No, after all, on her tombstone, she would ask to be recorded under her maiden name. Kelly was right. It didn't suit her at all. Maria suddenly jumped out of bed. What kind of a thought was that? She wasn't going to die, not from some stupid poison. Right now, the most important thing was not to drink or eat anything out of his hands or leave anything unattended around him. No, I'd better go straight to my parents' house. Oh my God, is she really thinking of a plan? How to save herself from her own husband? How absurd is that? I think I've definitely lost my mind. I thought, pulling my stuff out of the closet, I had to get out of here before it was too late. The apartment wasn't mine anyway. What else is there to wait for when Ethan put poison in the morning tea? The girl took a loud step with her nose and suddenly changed her mind. No, she's not just going to leave it all alone. She must wait for the party and reveal Ethan's true face in front of all the guests. Throw the poisoned drink in his face. Maria suddenly realized that the emptiness inside her had been replaced by pain. But it was still hard, unbearable. Nothing had ever caused her so much pain. How to devise revenge on her own beloved husband? She shoved all the stuff back in. Turns out it was already 7 p.m. Ethan was due back in a couple of hours. Maria decided to put on some makeup so he wouldn't notice her puffy face and ask what had happened. It took her a long time to put on makeup because her makeup was often ruined by tears, thin pens running from her eyes. By the time Ethan Maria arrived, she had managed to calm herself down. He took a long look at her face, but said nothing. As soon as her husband went to change, leaving his phone on the nightstand, the girl immediately turned on the screen. It was the first time she was really going to go through someone else's smartphone to find out more information about that Cindy and see who else she was dealing with. Maria immediately saw a new message from her Ethan on the block screen. No news. How is your Maria? Still no clue. She could barely stop herself from throwing the phone against the wall. She couldn't bear to look at it, so she ran, locked herself in the bathroom, and turned the water on full so no one could hear her sobbing. The pain inside her was replaced by rage, resentment, anger. Her life was ruined in one single day. First, she received a punch in the gut when she learned that the person closest to her didn't love her and had betrayed her. Then she realized that he and his mistress were already planning to kill her. And on top of that, a silly, almost childish one came even closer. If you think of everything else, resentment for spending $2,000 on a gift for her husband. Maria had no idea how, with all this, to manage to stay afloat and pretend that everything was all right. The fateful day of June 29 came. Maria decided to dress for the last time. It could have turned out that way. She wore a fancy red dress in the color of her stiletto heels and wore bright, almost vulgar makeup. Maria insisted that Ethan drive to the lake alone, and she would get there a little later with her parents, supposedly to surprise him with her image. Dad and Ethan Jr. were waiting in the yard in the old Toyota, and Mom decided to go up to the apartment to check on and embroider her daughter. But Maria had been there for years, and she hadn't put on makeup. I haven't seen you like this once today, but your daughter looks good on you. You'll be the most beautiful today, Helen urged. The woman had already had time to run around the apartment to check on her daughter's surroundings. Maria, don't you come any closer, she shouted from the next room. You have a huge bouquet is crumbling here. Half of the flowers are dry. You prune them. I actually kind of forgot about it. I could hardly hear. Maria responded, but come here. It is necessary to put the bouquet in order, and at once we will run. Helen held out a pair of scissors to Maria. You cut the stems off the healthy flowers to make them last longer, and I will not climb." Maria did not resist and obediently complied with her mother's request. Looking at Ethan's almost finished bouquet, she began to drown in her own vile thoughts again. When my mother confusedly said, "Oh, Mash, I think I cut something wrong." On the hand of a woman there was a whole bud. I somehow accidentally cut it off, along with a leaf. The flower is somehow artificial, by the way. "All right, I'll throw it away." "No, Mom, give it to me. I will love you just as long as the last of these roses will not wither." She remembered Maria's words and held the cut-off bud of that very first artificial flower to herself. She certainly could not allow herself to cry right in front of her mother, so she continued pruning the remaining roses. Ouch! Suddenly the girl shrieked. "What are you cutting?" Helen was frightened. It was a little accident. Maria bit his lip. A scarlet drop of blood appeared on his finger. "It seems Maria was destined to be red today. You seem distracted today," her mother said reproachfully. "You haven't slept, have you?" "I was up all night worrying." "That's all right. We'll work on it. Where's your first aid kit? You're gonna be okay. Is it a big wound?" "No, of course not. Unless you look deep into the heart. Look at me." Helen deftly lifted her daughter by the chin and looked into her eyes. "Maria, you're not wearing a face. What's the matter with you?" "There's nothing wrong with you." Maria remained silent. She carefully freed herself from her mother's arms and looked around the apartment. That's it. After this holiday, Maria would only be able to come back here to get her things. Until a week ago, she couldn't have imagined that it could all come to an abrupt end when she and her mother finally got in the car. Ethan Jr. asked her father to turn on the radio, but Maria stopped him for the first time, and she didn't want to hear those songs because they were associated only with her husband. The car pulled up to the dock, where a large white boat was parked. Festive music was being played. All the guests were already assembled. On one side, the relatives were assembled and were discussing vigorously, while on the other side, the dressed-up Kelly, Anna, and Vanessa were counting. In the middle stood Ethan, surrounded by his friends. When the guests noticed the Toyota pulling up in their necks, they hurried toward it, eager to be the first to see Maria. However, the crowd, as if on cue, parted before Ethan. He was a chic white suit with a bouquet of beautiful blue flowers in his hands like a fairy prince, greeting his princess from the carriage. He opened the door and bent down in front of Maria, holding out his hand with an embarrassed smile on his face. The girl climbed out of the Majin and gently embraced her beloved husband, causing long sighs to sweep through the crowd in unison. That smile through the pain Maria had practiced all last night. "You look irresistible," Ethan whispered in her ear. "Congratulations, my dears," rustled and shouted someone. I think it was Aunt Oksana, Ethan's godmother. "What a beautiful couple you are. Happily married for a year now. Maria, you're a goddess." Kelly's friend got the jump on her. The couple couldn't get away with congratulations. Maria got hold of a few more bouquets and gift bags. Ethan gently picked her up on his arm and busied himself on deck. All aboard joyfully called Ethan. All week, her husband had never noticed the detached state of Maria. So now, she did not even have to work hard to create for him the image of a knave, happy fool. While the boat was getting ready to leave, she chatted with Ethan's parents for a while, introduced her friends to the guests. She listened to her father's anecdotes and even drank a shot of beer given by him with grief. But now the boat was sailing over the water. Ethan took Maria by the hand and summoned the guests. The girl looked around frightened. When the two of them stood before everyone, the happy guests looked at the couple with glowing eyes and clapped their hands. What was going on? What was Ethan up to? Ethan held his hand up to encourage silence and then said, "I am glad to welcome you all to our celebration. On this day, exactly 1 year ago, a wonderful thing happened. Maria and I were married. I can remember like yesterday looking at her like an angel in a white dress with eyes in love. As we twirled in a waltz, the man squeezed her ears harder, Maria's fingers. The girl's heart clenched desperately, and she burst. An unpleasant lump entered her throat. It seems like we've been together forever, and it's only been a year. A lot has changed in our lives during that year. I've had a lot of problems with my work. It was very difficult for me at times. I thought I couldn't cope. But I had an important meaning for which I could move mountains. And that meaning was you, Maria. After all, after the hardest day, I would come home and see you smile, hear your voice, and realize that it wasn't all for nothing. I was always sure it would all work out in the end because you were there for me. Maria, you are my inspiration, my motivation, my life. I'm sure there are a lot of happy moments ahead of us. Thank you for being in my life. Ethan suddenly pressed Maria against him and kissed her hotly in surprise. She even staggered. Then he turned to Helen and Robert. Thank you for raising such a daughter and sending her to camp one day to work as a camp counselor. And thank you all. He turned to the others who had come to share the joy today. Maria did not notice how she already clumsily smears tears on her face. Was it all just a prearranged, memorized text? Is Ethan really that duplicitous? Sunshine? What is it? He asked tenderly, squatting down in front of Maria and squeezing her hands in his. Maria, what are you? Are you happy? That you have such a golden husband? Shouted Anna. She was just very upset. It's all right. Maria was always very impressionable. Voices came from everywhere. And the mountain suddenly jumped up somewhere and returned a few seconds later with a mug of water in his hands. Maria took it and drank it. Maria touched the glass with trembling hands and took a long look at the liquid. Inside it looks like ordinary water, but they must have thought it through. Maria, what's the matter with you? I'm fine, Ethan worried. He looked into the girl's face and seemed to want to add something else. But she suddenly splashed water in his face in anger. Someone in the crowd cried out in shock. The mocked girl whispered angrily. The girl was even more torn. Why are you doing this to me? What have I done to both of you? I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. She snapped and ran to her quarters, not wanting to see anyone. Confused, they were soaking wet. Ethan looked around in panic and hurried after her. Running in Maria's heels was uncomfortable, so the man quickly caught up with her and grabbed her arm. But Maria twisted out of her shoes and hurried down to her quarters, locking herself in. A few seconds later, a knock sounded. Maria. Maria, open up. What is it? Please, Maria, answer what I said wrong. Maria was silent. She slowly slid down the door and covered her face with her hands. Only occasionally Ethan would hear her sobbing softly. Maria, why are you crying? Please don't cry. Explain to me what happened. Why didn't you tell me right away that something was wrong? Did your husband speak from behind the door? He didn't seem to have any idea what was going on. Maria could tell by the voices that someone had approached him, but Ethan said to wait for them both upstairs. Please open the door. Desperately he asked, again turning to his wife. Tell me, what happened? What happened? At last she spoke. You have to ask Cindy. Maria, thank God you are all right. Her husband breathed out a sigh of relief. Which Cindy are you talking about? The one you were planning to kill me with? Kill you? Ethan gasped. I've already seen that you're good at it, but don't pretend, Ethan. Now I know how duplicitous you can be. What makes you think anyone's going to kill you? Not someone, but you and your mistress. I saw your correspondence on the laptop about the poison, about me, about your coddling poison. You saw the correspondence with Cindy? Yes, which, by the way, you visited regularly. Jesus, Maria, Maria. Wait, it's not what you think. Ethan was short of breath. I'll open the door. I'll tell you everything. That's why I cleared the chats with her, so you wouldn't see and make up things you shouldn't. We must have forgotten once. Open up, please. Not a chance. She said angrily. No, I don't. You think if the poison didn't work, you could lay him down with your hands. There was no poison. Ethan exclaimed in frustration. Well, there was, but it was rat poison. I poisoned the rats. You've got a very bad imagination. Maria remarked slyly. It was a surprise for you, which, by the way, has just gone bad, the man replied. Dead rats? No. Remember when you said you wanted a raisin for your anniversary? And I said I'd be fine without it. Well, I didn't say that because I didn't care, but because I already had a raisin. Only she was supposed to be the surprise. The The plan was that when we sailed, we would be met by 2 white horses, on which the 2 of us would go on a horseback ride. Just maybe you're about to become an actress. That movie is just about horseback riding. So I rented 2 horses for 2 months so you could train on them yourself. There were some problems where to keep them. So I had to buy a little old stable from a grandfather. It was a wreck. So Cindy and I went out almost every day the last week, cleaned the inside, and generally put everything in order. Cindy is an equestrian trainer and my second cousin. I haven't seen her in years. How are you doing with those girlfriends of yours? So I asked her to come to Phoenix so I wouldn't have to hire an unfamiliar trainer. We were already way overdue to make it to the anniversary because it turns out there was a whole settlement of wild rats in that old stable. Seriously, I had never seen so many before. I had to order some poison and poison it right away. Ethan was silent for a few seconds, as if choosing his words. That's it, I guess. I've just given you the surprise I've been preparing for almost 3 weeks. And now you can open the door for me. And the gypsy told me that you were seduced. Barely audible, Maria said, opening the door. She and Ethan stared at each other and the world for a long time. The girls were gradually saturated with colors again. What kind of gypsy? At last Ethan asked. He had a kinder smile on his face. The one I met at the railway station, the girl replied, wiping away her tears. She was right after all. What my husband's name, and that our anniversary was coming up. So the rest might have been confirmed too. Maria, don't scare me, Ethan asked. Anyone would tell you that from the pendant around your neck. Maria froze. She touched the pendant on her neck. Ethan had the exact same one. They were making pairs to order for a wedding. The pendant was engraved Maria plus Ethan, equal love, so she thought I was a fool. Or maybe she was. Maria whispered. Maria, come on. Ethan pulled her over and hugged her tightly. Like a baby. I myself once caught Sarog like that. A market fortune teller of 16 years predicted that I would never meet my love. But you see, none of that means anything. Maria cried again, for the umpteenth time today. But this time it was the realization that all was well again. All her suspicions turned out to be mere fiction, a delusion, a figment of someone else's imagination. And it was not for nothing that the prickle had warned her not to take the word of any fortune teller. And Maria, who had always considered herself a pragmatic, serious person, took the bait of the gypsy. Who would you tell that story to? They would laugh. It would be embarrassing in front of the guests, mumbled the girl. Now they'll think I'm just a typical hysterical girl. You gave me such a fantastic party, and this is how I thanked you. Ethan grinned. Honey, you're not your usual hysterical self. You're the best, most unpredictable one of all. That's why I love you, I guess. How could I have thought that about you? Maria huddled tightly against her husband with relief. Only today my mother accidentally broke that artificial rose from the bouquet. It was not a good thing. Ethan wiped the tears from his wife's cheeks with tenderness. No roses can express my love for you, my Maria. But if you wish, I will give you a new, more lasting one. He picked up his wife on his arm and carried her upstairs to the light. Maria leaned her head on his shoulder and smiled happily. How nice that June 29th is still the day of the wedding of the family. A glimpse of Kelly was mistaken after all. After all, that last name turned out to be the best one for Maria.